nature was a very important part of my growing up. I think about childhood growing up in this place my mother called the Garden of Eden. My father wasn't with us. He was in a place called America. What was happening was during Second World War, under Japanese occupation, there was a lot of curiosity about my father being in America, and Japan is at war with America. Apparently, a lot of police or detectives came by the house and rummaged through whatever material he had. And my mother wanted to get away from it all, and she found this piece of land were planted with fruit trees all over. So I had kind of a complex outlook on nature. There's a beauty of it, and at the same time, a reminder of reality. I don't know how I went through the life in Korea and then in West Virginia and New York. I never thought I would end up in Connecticut. I think I've been lucky to have met the people that I've met. I felt that I had to go to college. I had no money, but I just believed that that's something that everyone did. When it came time for college, I applied to, I think 2 schools for architecture and 3 for art. Pratt Institute gave me a full 4-year scholarship. It was the greatest thing that happened to me because not only the free education, but brought me to New York. And to me, New York, during those years, it had everything. All the great artists were still alive. New movements are being born. Everything was influencing everything else. New York was the ideal city to grow up. Up till then, no one really talked about space or form. They're very abstract things. A lot of anti-formalists thought that form was like a straitjacket, a formula for doing something, and it seemed uncreative, but even the most formalist thing has room for individuality. So in sculpture, there's always a problem of how does it stand up? You're always looking for a material moldable. It became kind of part of my search too, find something that I could feel comfortable with. It's not that I actually thought of steel, but I began to recognize there are certain materials that you can heat, you can make it soft, flexible, and when you take away the heat, it hardens, and it's whatever it was before, so there's no chemical change. So steel is basic material for a lot of things because it has this versatility. I don't think of it as a material importance. First of all, I don't see wire, I see line. That's like an important point of departure. It's like saying it starts with one note. Literally, a lot of my pieces start somewhere in the middle with a dot or a line. It's how the line moves, that dictates what direction, what kind of rhythm. Very, very similar to music. I have a tendency to relate a lot of things to music. Leonard Bernstein once wrote, "Music is about the next note." And it's pretty much the same process for me. What is the next note? And the next note has to say something to the first note. There's something about character issues. How is one impacted by the other one? Kind of a conversation taking place. By the time you bring in your third and fourth and fifth, each time something happens to the whole, as well as the individual rods. I think as much as possible, I'm really making music. It's just instead of sound in space, it's movement in space. I'm trying to look at the beginning, and the beginning is somewhere in here. I don't even know where it is now. So when I'm starting, it could be just one little curve like this. And then maybe another curve. It's like Beethoven goes da 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 da. How do you answer that? Oh, let me see. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. It's a simple question and answer. And each time it can be different. But yeah, it's a visual conversation. And you want to come up with interesting answers. We're talking about the parts and how they relate, and somehow communication within the piece becomes coherent. It becomes a meaningful discussion. It holds together, it makes sense, it says something. You have to really look, to see who's doing what, and there's a conversation within the structure that makes sense. To the extent that it almost doesn't need the artist anymore. It's done, and it has a life of its own. That sounds too like maybe mystical, but actually all good works, I think, have a life of their own. It's a form of communication. The shape of something is determined by the forces that act on it and the material that it's made of. This isn't just art, it's engineering, it's understanding nature. There's a part of me that believed that art wasn't just for picture making, that it was a thought process and a commitment to a certain form of life. It wasn't just a decision about, okay, am I going to devote all my life to painting or sculpture? One of the things I learned was not to judge the future and to be kind of imprisoned by your own assumptions about what it had to be or what it is. You don't have to plan everything out and then try to live out the way you planned, but the plan needs to evolve as a part of a process. So it took a long time for me to realize that I have to understand life as a process. This is the way I begin, and it's like a planting, and it grows to a certain point, then some things will grow into other things. Some things will sit there for months, sometimes years. But sometimes even after a year, I may see something that I didn't see a year ago. And I pick up the conversation, and sometimes it grows. Even this piece began with one line in space, and then 2, 3, 4. So you can see that every form is made up of tiny little smaller forms. I don't want to know what the ending is. I would rather have it as a surprise. But I did a piece once called Storyteller's Dilemma, because you now are writing a story, but how should it end? And part of you might say, well, let's do it the old-fashioned way. It's been successful all this time. So the next story has the same ending as the first story. And that's kind of a problem. And you don't want to rely on, the same happy ending.